Uh, Good day, sir. And we have this discussion with Sri S. Narendra, who is the Principal Information Officer to Government of India and also Information Advisor to Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao during his regime. And India was in a difficult situation economically and politically during Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's time, following the murder or assassination of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, and also economic crisis which was looming large over the country. Sri Narendra was witness to very many important path-breaking decisions in the government during those days as information advisor. And he has come out with a book, India's Tipping Point, on that very troublesome, very path-breaking time of the country. Welcome, sir, to this conversation. And let me start by asking, because you have been mentioning that there is a crisis, there was preparation earlier, even during VP Singh's time. Everybody seems to be, postponing the issues or the steps which Prime Minister Narasimha Rao was faced with, and he boldly went ahead it. So, was it an inevitability that economic reforms has to take place because India was in such a situation, or as widely believed it was a pressure from World Bank and IMF?
Let me at the outset mention that the crisis was brewing even during Rajiv Gandhi's time. Although economic growth was very high, the BOP situation was always precarious. It became worse during 89-90 when two unstable governments were in power in Delhi. In addition to that, our foreign exchange reserves were dwindling very fast. We had almost $1.2 billion only as a foreign exchange reserve, and even essential imports were becoming very, very difficult. The previous government had been presented with the same problem. Solutions were also presented according to my information, but both Chandrasekhar government as well as Rajiv Gandhi government and VP Singh government did not take adequate steps in time. When the new government headed by a minority Congress party led by P.V. Narasimha Rao took power, the economy was not only collapsing, but we were almost defaulting on our repayment obligations. We did approach the International Monetary Fund for a bailout package. They have imposed the normal conditions. That is, you have to give sufficient space to the private sector. Government should cut down the expenditure. Then you should nurse back the economy. This was the common prescription to any borrower the IMF prescribes. But the surprising thing the Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao did was, he was not only the Prime Minister of India, he was also the Industries Minister. In one stroke, he abolished the mother of all license control Raj laws, known as Industries Development and Regulation Act, on the 26th of July, 1991. No one expected. The World Bank did not even hint about removing this. This law had been enacted in 1951 by the first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru in order to introduce in this country a socialistic pattern of society in which the government was supposed to do everything. And it was a holy cow of sorts. No congressman had dared to touch it, not even Indira Gandhi nor Rajiv Gandhi.
Okay. So you mean to say he was not a reluctant reformer. He was determined that things have to change. is it not?
He was never a reluctant reformer. He did not stand in the way of either the finance minister bringing down the duty structure or import and export controls to be removed by the commerce minister or any other minister who wanted to reform the colonial kind of an economy that was there and the laws attending on that. And he himself may not have initiated those reforms, but if anybody came up, I want to change, he never stood in the way. He gave them 100% political support.
Yeah, so that means if he was seen as a reluctant reformer, it was all because of the systemic issues, not because of his determination to change the way economy was going.
See, unlike many other prime minister, Mr. Narasimha Rao was a very low-profile prime minister who did not want to say that I did this. He allowed other ministers to claim the credit. If anybody, Manmohan Singh, wanted to reform the financial sector, he fully backed him, gave him the support. So also to other ministers. He did not say that it is done because of me.
Okay.
Which has become the trend today.
Yeah, that's another thing. And also the international situation was different. India was part of the non-alignment group, but with the collapse of Soviet Union and the end of Cold War, the world was changing. Is it not that he realized this change and moved politically and economically so that we are where we are today, is part of the globalized economy?
My book touches upon the various factors which were changing the global order. First one was a media and telecommunication revolution were taking place, which was breaking all the barriers. Satellite TV had come to India. Internet was at its beginnings, and the Soviet Union has collapsed, and as a result, it had divided itself into several republics of independent states, and China was a rising power. It was liberalizing its economy, globalizing its economy. All the command economies like Vietnam, Albania, most of the Eastern Europe were introducing market-oriented reforms, looking at a globalized economic system. Looking at the trend, Narasimha Rao wanted to push India into the front line of these reforms. And not only on the technological front, he wanted India to move, but economically, he opened up the Indian economy, not only the Indian private sector, and he also opened it up for foreign direct investment in many of the sectors. It was a very gradual approach. He did not want the country to hurtle into reforms. He wanted these reforms to be calibrated. His own expression is always, I want calibrated reforms. That is because the world was changing. We were yet to see what is going to be the world economic order. The World Trade Organization had come into shape yet. The GATT was going away on the one side. And almost when all the communist countries and others were liberalizing the economy, there are complementarities in the economies. So he wanted to just understand how India can put its best foot forward.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest contribution was India was politically important since 1947 when it gained independence. But on the global economic map, India did not figure. In the world trade, our contribution was less than 1% in international trade.
Yes.
He gave the Indian political system an economic muscle and put India on the global economic map.
Yeah, of course, the results are yet to be seen because we were talking about billion-dollar economies those days, and today people are talking about trillion-dollar economics, economies after 30 years, which means that looking back, whatever he did India is standing on whatever he did those days, is it not, sir?
See, the governments which came later, after Narasimha Rao, had faced less odds compared to Narasimha Rao. Politically, economic reform was not popular within the political Indian National Congress. The BJP was opposing it. The communist parties were opposing it. All the states were not even aware of what was going on in the entire international sphere. The odds were stacked against him. In spite of that, he introduced economic reforms, and our economic in those days, the size of it was about $266 billion. Today it has grown almost 10 times or more.
Yes. That itself.
And this,
yeah.
Now, to continue, whereas the successor government, whether it is the Vajpayee government or the UPA government or that of Narendra Modi government, they did not have to face the odds that he faced.
Okay.
Today, almost all the states want economic reform, liberalization. They are going for foreign investment. Whereas the whole thing was opposed by the entire political system.
Okay. So when you say the odds, was it just the political opposition, or even in the Indian industry, like when the car reforms happened, the automobile sector was liberalized, there was a lot of hue and cry. So was when telecom was happening, public sector people supporting them made a lot of hue and cry. And also even in Congress, there was a huge opposition, political opposition to what's happening. So what do you think was the major odds which he faced? Political, administrative?
I'll go step by step.
Yeah.
I understood your question. The odds were not just political. The Indian industry wanted to play a bigger role in the Indian economy, but did not want competition from abroad. They did not want globalization. You have heard about the Bombay Club headed by Rahul Bajaj.
Yeah.
He and several industrialists opposed even entry to the World Trade Organization. The BJP launched a campaign, clandestine campaign, against India joining the World Trade Organization. And they started spreading the rumor that if India joins the World Trade Organization, then the farmers will not be able to grow their own crops.
Yes, yes. That's a big campaign. Yeah.
And when the initial investment was coming in, when Pizza Hut opened its first few shops in Karnataka, one Nanjuda Swami went and raided the shops.
Okay. Yeah, farmers leader. Yes, I remember that.
And for instance, both Air India and Indian Airlines were not corporations. They were government undertakings.
Okay.
It was Narasimha Rao government that made them into corporation. Today, because of that, this present government was able to sell it.
Okay. Yeah.
Airports.
Yeah.
There was opposition to the private sector developing the Indian airports.
Yeah.
The Communist Party opposed it, the BJP had opposed it. Therefore, merging the International Airport Authority of India and the Airport Authority of India for domestic airports, they created one entity so that it can play its role, but at the same time, airports can be given to private sector. Because the whole mindset in those days was government should build the roads, government should build the housing, yes, government should own the telecoms, government should own the airlines, and everything the government only has to do, yeah, and private sector was seen as an exploiter. The image of the private sector was extremely bad.
Yes. Yes.
In fact, in one of the meetings with the FICCI, yeah, the Prime Minister Narasimha Rao told them, yeah, please improve your image, yeah, and tell the people profit making is not bad. As long as your image is not improved, my job becomes very difficult.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fact. So you mean to say that At every step, he had, odds staring at him, but somehow that he managed to outwit most of it. Is it not so? Especially
Yes.
in economic.
See, I had done a grassroots level survey in 1991, soon after the economic reforms.
Yeah.
I had introduced the district Congress presidents, state Congress presidents, and industries ministers of states. I did a vox pop.
Okay.
It was very interesting, but all of them said, Mr. Narasimha Rao is changing the policies of Nehru and Mrs. Gandhi. He's handing it over to the private sector.
Okay.
And when I made a presentation in 1992, January, before I became his advisor, I showed him this vox pop. He was shocked. And I had to tell him, sir, please first address your party. If they are talking against the reforms, it will only add fuel to the fire.
Okay.
Within the government, other than the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, and Mr. P. Chidambaram, the Commerce Minister, very few people were speaking about economic reforms.
Yes. Yes. That itself.
Only these were the voices.
Yeah. So what about the administrative service, civil services? What was their role? You also mentioned that many of them came in support, that many of them were, tagging along kind of thing. How was that happening, sir? What was their response?
You see, I was an invited member of what is known as Foreign Promotion Board.
FIPB, yes. Yes.
Headed by the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, Mr. N. Verma.
Yeah.
I attended all those meetings from June 1991 onwards. Many of the secretaries to the Government of India, the so-called bureaucracy didn't want to change. They were much more open to reforms. They only wanted that ministers' support. That was not forthcoming in many of the areas.
Okay.
And Mr. Narasimha Rao himself once told me, when I asked him, sir, you are keeping the industries ministry with you.
Yeah.
You are also, the Foreign Investment Promotion Board is in the Prime Minister's office. And you might be accused of favoritism and corruption. Don't you think you must hand it over to some other minister, your industries ministry?
Yeah.
And he said, look, I have not gone to Udyog Bhavan, the industries ministry headquarters, even once to sit there. I want to make this ministry less and less important so that industry becomes more important than the ministry.
Yes.
The moment you appoint any minister,
yeah,
the minister wants to be important, not the industry of the country.
Yes, I remember my friend Professor PJ Kurian was the junior minister, and
Yeah.
I used to tease him that, look, I was told that to get to see a minister in industries Bhavan, you need to pay the peon 5,000 rupees. And now nobody wants to meet you. That kind of situation, so people are freely meeting the junior ministers and, taking.
Well, I can tell you one more anecdote.
Yes. Yes.
In 1994,
Yeah.
when he reached the cabinet, he inducted Mr. Karunakaran, the great Kerala leader,
Yes.
as industries minister.
Yeah.
On the second day of taking over, he wrote a letter, please transfer the Foreign Investment Promotion Board to my ministry.
Oh, God.
Then he wanted all the officials who are trying to make the industry ministry less important, a facilitator, to be transferred. Then Narasimha Rao told me, you wanted me to give up the ministry, I gave it up. You look at this letter.
So which means that the ministers felt that their own importance was going off. That's one of the reasons that he didn't
Yes.
want the minister there. Okay, that's. Then looking back, there are many sectors which are up and down: finance sector, telecom sector, IT sector, and one question which comes to my mind: but for the economic reforms, was India, or will India should have been an IT superpower, or at least outsourcing capital of the world? but for this economic reforms?
See, many factors contribute to the emergence of India's IT sector. One was technological revolution.
Yeah.
Then the kind of human resource from Nehru onwards, the successor governments had created in this country. The IITs, the IIMs, engineering colleges. There is a huge pool of talent that had no jobs, that had no opportunities. Suddenly the IT sector came as a great opportunity. Then the economic reforms followed. And within the shadow of all this reform, the IT sector grew. But whether he did not want only the IT sector as such, because IT sector has a limited job opportunity.
Yeah.
It may trigger a lot of wealth,
Hmm.
but that wealth is not sufficiently distributed across the population categories.
Yeah.
He wanted agriculture, small-scale industries, agro-industries, and within the 5 years given to him, he was doing many things. And one of them was, he told the investors who came, although the finance ministry and the commerce ministry were not very happy about his speeches, he always used to tell them, don't look upon India as a 100 billion middle class market. If you look at only India as a market and make them only consuming mounts, you will take away the profit and they will become poorer, and that 100 billion will become 80 million. I want 800 billion people of India to become middle class.
Okay.
I want jobs and incomes.
Yes. Which has happened actually, is it not? So the middle class grew tremendously in the last 30 years, thanks to the sectors which got opened up.
Yeah. Today, because we have a huge population and a burgeoning youth population seeking jobs, the economy is not able to give sufficient opportunities to all the people. But suddenly the IT sector has come, it has become the darling of the economy.
Yeah.
It may push the GDP, but it is not distributing the income across.
Yes.
And as a result, it is low-paid jobs, which are known as service sector jobs, which are multiplying. That means there are no terminal benefits, there is no job security.
That's sad. So
Therefore, the entire youth today is looking at the service sector
yeah.
as the only area where they can get jobs.
Yes, that's a downside of it. But coming to the political part of it, you said that India was also in turmoil, like Punjab, Kashmir, insurgency, all of it together, and then came this build-up on Ram Mandir. Politics should have been a big headache for Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. And how did you people see him leading that front? Because today Punjab insurgency was down, Kashmir, some other the issues came down, but unfortunately Ram Mandir took its a different shape.
Well, Mr. Cherian, you have touched upon a very important area of work that was done very quietly. India was in social turmoil from 89 because of VP Singh government suddenly declaring the Mandal Commission and implementing it as reservation for the OBCs.
Yeah.
Then there are political turmoil in Punjab. Kashmir, when he took over, the militants had taken over the Lal Chowk, the central part of Srinagar, and hoisted their flag. And Northeast was always simmering.
Yes.
And because of unstable governments which preceded Narasimha Rao's government, and they not having sufficient time, almost all the foreign magazines, even Indian media, had almost predicted that India is going to be a failed state. On top of it came the economic and financial crisis, and a minority government.
Yeah.
This was the political scene that he inherited, so he had to deal with it in a very solid way. he did not shout about it. Very quietly, brick by brick. One, he tried to address the militancy in J&K. I was a member of a group of secretaries he had constituted. We used to visit almost every month Kashmir, talk to people, trying to see development takes place. Both the politician bureaucracy in J&K and the militant did not want education, health, and any progress to take place. Because if Kashmir remained backward, if people were poor, they could exploit them.
Yes.
So brick by brick, he went on sending delegations, meeting people across the political spectrum, trying to bring them round without confrontation.
Okay.
And as a result, almost all the political parties in J&K, like the National Conference or the other groups, all felt that militancy should be ended.
Okay.
People were really fed up of militancy in Kashmir. They wanted tourism to come back because it is their mainstay. There is nothing else till now. And then a masterstroke was he never confronted Pakistan openly. Went on meeting the Prime Minister of Pakistan wherever the opportunities occurred. Went on talking about terrorism and bringing normalcy to J&K. Then international diplomacy, he used it very cleverly. Because India had opened up, the foreign business and industry had developed a stake in India. He used to say, my external affairs ministry will now become less important because the international business will become my ambassadors.
Okay.
That was his way of looking at it.
Okay.
And he said, I'm addressing the stomach of the Western Europe and America by opening up sectors like power, telecom, and various other sectors.
Okay.
And because of that, the United States became less hostile to India.
Okay.
And saw the perfidy of Pakistan.
Okay.
And it is the US ambassador who, all the ambassadors sent to J&K to see what is happening, what is the people's opinion. They came back and reported to him that people want peace, people want elections. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Once the US government turned around,
Yeah.
the international media became less hostile to India on Kashmir.
Okay. And
Kashmir,
also same way the Punjab also happened, I think.
then Punjab,
Yeah.
he gave free hand to the Chief Minister of Punjab, Mr. Bayan Singh.
Yeah.
And although he said he set up a human rights commission so that people need not go to Amnesty International with their grievances.
Yeah.
That is the masterstroke.
Yeah.
Setting up the India's own human rights, credible human rights commission. Thus started going to Kashmir, hearing the militants' version as well as the security forces. Because what was happening was, because the militants group had access to Amnesty International, other human rights groups, they were getting a lot more
publicity
play in the international media,
yes,
whereas their own atrocities were not getting projected.
yes, yes, yeah.
So it was a very step-by-step approach, both in Punjab as well as in J&K, that he addressed internal security through internal diplomacy by talking to everybody, including the opposition parties. In fact, none of the opposition parties wanted to participate in the elections.
Yeah.
He wanted to have elections in October 1995. In an all-party meeting, BJP and the left parties refused to participate in the election.
Okay.
And Farooq Abdullah demanded various conditions when he was approached to participate in the elections.
Okay.
They were all scared of the militants.
Yeah, they were given up on the whole situation. I remember that.
Yeah.
So
he said, unless the political process is revived in J&K, the militants will have an upper hand.
Yeah.
I do not want whether Congress wins or anybody wins. I want the political process to
happen. Yeah.
Come alive in J&K. That was his approach.
So coming to Ram Mandir issue, that's considered to be a bolt on his legacy. Do you think it could have been prevented? You know, if you have been saying that in the book also, you said that he did everything and trusted people in the state government and the political parties, but they ditched him at the last minute. Do you think there was any way it could be prevented? Because the way it is gone about in, you know, after that, you know, it has become something else now.
I'm not trying to either defend or to attack him on any of the issues. I have stated in my book what I saw, what I discussed with him, and my own small little role throughout the crisis. In the government of India, except the then Home Secretary, Mr. Madhav Godbole, and Mr. Arjun Singh, who advocated dismissal of the government and deployment of the army, neither the Home Minister nor any other minister in those meetings I did not see strongly arguing for dismissing the government. That was because there was an elected government. It had given a sworn affidavit to the Allahabad High Court that they will protect. In my book, I have cited all their assurances given, which are reproduced in the Ayodhya white paper by the government of India.
Okay.
And several times, the Home Minister, Mr. S.P. Chauhan, visited the Babri Masjid to strengthen the security, and he offered to send central forces. But the state government said, we do not need central forces, our forces are adequate to protect.
Okay.
Then, under the Constitution, you cannot deploy the central forces or the army unless the state government specifically asks for the services, or you dismiss the government.
Okay.
Then the governor of UP, not appointed by Narasimha Rao,
I know Satyanarayana Reddy, I remember, yeah.
Mr. Satyanarayana Reddy,
Yeah.
he said, I will not take over the state administration, because if I try to take over, that structure is likely to be destroyed even before I take over, and the whole blame will be on you and me.
Okay.
So the governor gave this kind of this thing. And without the governor's report, can you recommend President's rule to the President of India?
Yeah.
People have forgotten. In 1992, mere apprehension of breakdown of constitution is not a ground for dismissing the government.
Oh, no. It was a difficult.
The same media that is criticizing Narasimha Rao for saying that he was prevaricating, he did not dismiss, hailed K.R. Narayanan President, K.R. Narayanan in 1997, when he refused to accept the cabinet report to impose President's rule in Uttar Pradesh, because Mulayam Singh wanted Mayawati government to be removed.
Yes.
The Gujarat government
Yes.
recommended President's rule. Within 1 hour, returned it saying that there is no sufficient ground for dismissal.
Okay.
So the Constitution of India, as the Liberan Commission has very clearly said, is inadequate to deal with the situation where a government that is sworn to uphold the Constitution, that gives an affidavit to the Allahabad High Court, that was recognized by the Supreme Court,
Okay.
fails to honor its own affidavit.
Yes.
Now, is it a failure of the Constitution, the failure of the judiciary, the failure of Mr. Narasimha Rao as Prime Minister? It is for
Yes.
history to decide.
Yes. That's a very, any which way, it's a very unfortunate situation which he has to face. So looking back, the one important question, we have just 2 minutes. So briefly, did Narasimha Rao's party support to his initiatives, his crisis management was adequate, and the way they have gone about his legacy and his remembrance, what do you think shows the support or lack of support or lack of appreciation?
See, unfortunately, the Congress party itself did not want the legacy left behind by Narasimha Rao to be recognized by itself. It rejected it.
Okay.
The greatest credit goes to Narasimha Rao for giving an economic muscle to the political system.
Okay.
Then, in the international diplomacy, introduced an economic factor that is more dominant today than the political factors.
Okay.
Today, if India is occupying a seat at the high table in international economics, it is because of those reforms. In addition, it is the economic reforms that have integrated the country.
Yes.
It made it into a common market.
Yeah.
It is not Hindi, it is not Bollywood, it is the economic reforms. Today, people from North are coming to South. Southern people are going to North for jobs and incomes.
Yes.
So people are facing each other.
Yes.
And trying to discover each other through tourism, travel,
Yes.
and jobs and incomes.